years. And hold on one second. And so as part of a interviewing process, a couple of years ago, Gates Mills interviewed a few different consultants, and very, very fortunate to have them select CT consultants for this project. It is the first comprehensive plan that the village has undertaken. And the definition of a comprehensive plan is a policy document and a process that looks at where the community is right now, trying to assess how we got there, and then based on community input, identify long-term goals, long-term 20 to 30 years out there, what we would like to be, and then identifying strategies on how to get there. And one of the major efforts that the village wanted to undertake was to involve as many people as possible in the process. So our process usually involves an advisory committee of about 20, 25 people, and then doing a community survey, which Gates Mills we're going to do here, and then doing a couple of public forums, big community meetings where everyone's invited. But beyond that, Gates Mills wanted to, like I said, involve more residents, as many people as possible. So one of the outcomes of that discussion was identifying these subcommittees or teams, people who have expertise and a desire to assist the process. Sandra and Chip will go over the three different ones in a few minutes, but basically your team is a team we identified as, because of the amount of expertise in the village, of people who have significant amounts of expertise. The public relations and communications team was one group of people that we landed upon, that we identified as a really critical component of public outreach. And so that involves a few different roles and ways that this team will supplement and assist the larger advisory committee on spreading the word, identifying ways, or helping people, making sure people know what the village is doing and know the various ways they can respond, review and respond. So with that, Chip, I would turn it back over to you and Sandra.
I'll pick it back up. Thanks, Chris. And I'll just draw your attention to our agenda. And this third bullet of the first topic there, introduction and overview, says that the goal of our village comprehensive plan is to enhance the appeal of the village and the value of the land and property throughout the village, while retaining, if not enhancing, the unique historic character and quality services of the village. So just a little bit more detail about the comprehensive plan. As Chris mentioned, the village did select a consultant, CT consultants, back in the fall of 2019. And as we were planning to launch in the spring, we were hit with COVID, and we were advised that these kind of processes really are best if you can meet face to face with people. So we kind of delayed waiting for the COVID to dissipate. That didn't happen. So we've made a decision to move ahead with deliberate speed and kind of use the social media tools that we have available, and hopefully meet in person when we have an opportunity to. This is really a big deal for the village. We've never done a comprehensive plan. Those of you who have been around for a while know that in '97 there was a land use plan that resulted in a zoning change that required 5 acres as a minimum parcel per resident. But this comprehensive plan goes far beyond that, because we're interested in soliciting opinions from residents about their perspective for the future as it concerns the housing stock, services and amenities, school performance, the downtown neighborhood, safety, conservation, taxes, telecommunications, and more. So it's really much broader. And we also thought that it was important not only to get comments from villagers, but from outside perspectives, people who deal in real estate, relocation companies, people that could let us know what we're not seeing. I guess our catchphrase for the outside perspectives team is, what are we not seeing if we just look in the mirror? So, Chip and I have been appointed by the mayor, and she's on this Zoom meeting now, Karen Schneider, to be coordinators. And what that means is that we're responsible for seeing that this process is pursued on a deliberate and efficient manner to come up with some recommendations for the council and the mayor by the end of 2022. We are not members of any of the committees. Our job is really facilitation. The whole process is under the leadership of our consultant, Chris Hopkins. So our personal opinions are not relevant. We're really here to make sure that as many people as possible have a say, as Chris alluded to. And since October, November, when again we started in earnest, the mayor and Chip and I have talked to over 100 individuals who are either self-identified or were recommended to us as folks that could serve on one or more of the committees or teams that are conducting this plan. So, everybody that was interested, we talked to, and based on their availability and interest and skills, were recommended to a particular team. So I will, I guess, stop at that point, and maybe Chip, maybe I could
Sure.
step in and
Sure.
talk about
So,
the advisory committee and the teams.
okay. Let me just supplement a couple of things that Sandra said. I'm not sure how long each person on this call or on this Zoom meeting has been a resident of the village, but if you've been a resident longer than 1 month, you probably realize that people love our village and they don't want anything to change except for maybe one thing, whatever that is, whatever every individual has. So whereas a comprehensive plan is trying to really look out over the next 10 years at what do we need to be aware of and consider, and that may require change. I like to cite an unknown statistic, but if you bear with me, we have about 1,000 residencies in this village. If we turn a house over every 10 years, which we're probably slower than that, but 10 years is actually above national average, we would turn over every house in this village. Obviously, some would turn over much more than that, but we turn over every house in the next 10 years. If average length of stay is 20 years, someone living in their house, and we certainly have residents that are in a lot longer than that, that would still be 500 new residents moving into the village in the next 10 years. So part of this challenge is, what are those people potentially looking for? Because if we're not attractive to the next round of residents moving in, then obviously there won't be as much demand. We'll start to lose ground as a community, and nobody's going to like that. So it's very important to not only focus on what current residents think and want to see happen with our village or not happen, but it's important to get a sense of what we need to be aware of. And that's where our outside consultant will bring in a lot of perspective, and where some of the sub-teams that we've lined up will work on. Now, when the report from the advisory committee is done, it's presented to council and the mayor. And that's why Sandra and I are strictly facilitators, because we don't want to make this Sandra and Chip's proposal to council. We obviously want it the community's proposal, and then we as 2 members of council plus the other 5 plus the mayor will certainly take it under advisement. It's not mandatory, but it's hopefully going to have enough weight and substance that considered very significantly. If it results in potential change in the village, which might include potential zoning change, that will be very carefully talked through over an extended period. And if it was any kind of a change to zoning, it would probably go to the voters. So this really is a probably 2+ year overall endeavor, about a year for this master plan or comprehensive plan process, but then probably another year of deliberating and getting further input and refining what the village should do based on the findings of this whole group. Now, the advisory committee, 25 residents we've lined up, tried to do a cross section, old, young, male, female, different, live in different parts of the village. And so it's hopefully a real cross section. Some have been involved a great extent in the village, some, maybe fairly new residents. So, but that's just one of the dimensions. We have 3 other teams that are going to be heavily involved. We have one called Outside Perspectives, and that group, which has started work, we're going to interview about 40, maybe 30 to 40 realtors, and get their input into why do they see some people are attracted to the village, why are some not so attracted, how do we seem to stack up compared to other communities, what are things that we need to be thinking about to make ourselves attractive or more attractive going forward, and make sure that we maintain what is already key parts of us. That's a real task for them. In addition to realtors, we're going to be doing a lot of other work and maybe supplement some of the data collection that the consultants are going to provide. We have a neighborhood outreach group, and that will involve this communications and PR team, because the material come about summer as some of the key findings are emerging. The intent is for the neighborhood teams to go out and try to gather as many people from a neighborhood, perhaps something at community house, hopefully in the summer, nice weather, maybe outdoors, and take residents through. This is what we're starting to find. And the material, the presentation, we're hoping that the communications committee could help develop that. And then come in the fall, late fall, as the advisory committee is coming up with recommendations to again have the neighborhood teams go out and communicate that, and again get feedback from and again have some presentation materials to take out. So Chris Hopkins can show at the right point in time what some of those materials have looked like with some of the other communities she's worked with. But that's going to be very important. We get a lot of question, is this going to be some big secret process and then it's going to be sprung on the community? The intent is absolutely the opposite, not only from involving so many of the residents of the community and all the attempted outreach, but through you guys by how we're going to set up our PR and communications with hopefully website, maybe Twitter and Facebook. I'm the old generation, so that's foreign to me, but obviously for a lot of the village, that's a very popular base for communicating. We have the standard old pink sheet, which is important. Chagrin Valley Times is obviously an avenue. So at the right points in time, sending out communications will be important. And that means that you guys do need to be tracking what's unfolding. When there's an advisory committee meeting, not sure that everybody on this committee should be listening in or attending. Hopefully the advisory committee will officially kick off in probably mid-April, maybe early May, depending on timing of some of this other work. And then it'll start within probably monthly meetings. And so hopefully at that point we can be meeting in person, and maybe one or two representatives of this committee will be tracking some of what's happened at the advisory committee and communicating that, some of those kinds of things. So, but very important to be as communicative as we can possibly be, not just but as things begin to take shape, to communicate that out. So, a couple of things that Chris said. There's going to be a very extensive questionnaire going out to every resident, and that'll be a communications. We want to make sure, get that broadcast as far and wide, that please respond. Chris indicates that with a good effort, we can get a very high percentage of the residents to respond. So, and obviously that's going to tell us a lot about what people are thinking and what's important to them, et cetera. So there's going to be a lot of key interviews that the consultants are going to undertake. And there'll be a couple of public forums. And again, trying to keep track of that and report on some of the things that have taken place. So throughout, we think that interfacing, communicating with the residents, we're going to give it our best effort. You're going to be the front people for that. And I think a lot of the success of this process is going to be the extent that the community has had a chance to weigh in and at least be aware of what's going on. As we all know, when residents get attuned to something, we tend to get a lot of feedback. It's sometimes they don't just pay attention, and when it's brought to their attention, they tend to weigh in. So we want to make sure that throughout this next year that the residents are as aware of what's going on as possible. So with that,
I'll pick
Sandra,
it back up from there. Yeah. Thanks, Chip. In terms of the timeline, just to give you some sense of that, the Outside Perspectives team has already begun their work in developing a guide to use with realtors to get, again, information from outside of the village, how we're perceived. So they're kind of up and running. The advisory committee, as Chip indicated, really won't begin their work until a little later in the spring, and the neighborhood outreach team will be starting probably later perhaps in the summer, when there isn't some information coming from the advisory committee. So with regard to PR and communications, we're starting helping to launch you now, because there's some things that need to get set in place. The methods of communicating. Chip alluded to the pink sheet. We certainly have the website, but there might be other suggestions about how to communicate with villagers. How often to communicate with villagers, what to communicate, setting up a brand for the comprehensive brand, something that will be easily identified by the community. So there's a lot of work to begin. We hope that with a large committee like you are, that there won't be any burden to any one particular person. And with the skills assessment that you completed, we can see that there's a great deal of expertise on this committee. And I think Chris can probably verify the fact that we're very fortunate, because many times, this kind of work is done by the consultant, but the fact that we have talent to be able to, to take on this responsibility allows them to do other things with their time and with our dollars. So again, I think it's very exciting, and I think it's also very exciting that we have two residents from the village who are fairly new, Sarah and Jamie Carricker, who live on Colvin Road. They both, they have some history here. Sarah grew up in the Canton area. They lived in Washington, D.C. and came back to the village. They're probably a good example of a lot of young people, who want to reside in an idyllic community like this. But anyway, we're delighted delighted to have them. Sarah has a PhD in molecular biology. She currently works for a medical device company where she's responsible for, taking technical language and making it user friendly. So we're delighted to have her. And Jamie, her husband, has a journalism degree from Kent State University, and also is very savvy about website, social media. Jamie is a brand new member of the Gates Mills Land Conservancy. So they're both jumping into the community in a very positive way, and they've agreed to step up and be the facilitators for this PR and communications team. So with that, we're going to turn it over to Jamie and Sarah to talk a little bit about what they perceive as next steps, responsibilities, roles, and I think that Chris, you may add a little bit too from your perspective of working with other communities and kind of what's been successful with regard to PR and communications. So welcome, Jamie and Sarah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. You want to go or me?
You go ahead.
Okay. Well, it's great to talk to you all. And I'll be honest, I didn't have time to read the skills survey to kind of see what everybody's skilled at, but I'm really excited to kind of see and get to know everybody here. Like Sandra said, we are new, so every time we get involved in something, we meet new people. So yeah, it's been really, really good for us. We really appreciate being involved and you guys getting involved too. So we just kind of came up with a really rough idea of kind of a communications plan. Obviously, working with everybody, it's something we can change and iterate on and all that sort of thing. But just kind of keeping in mind, what we're trying to do and what we can do kind of in a way that's manageable amongst all of ourselves, everybody who, may have other things going on or other jobs. But just to kind of start with the top line, we view ourselves, as everyone was nailed down here, supporting the completion of the comprehensive plan on time with villager feedback. And our goal, amongst our group is just to educate and inform the village and provide a regular outlet to gather feedback. Just kind of creating that two-way communication stream, so that folks around the village don't feel left out, and there are ways that they can get information or feedback back to us or to the group if they would like. We nailed down a bunch of different tactics to kind of tackle this, and I think that a lot of stuff will kind of start to come into more play as the process moves along and things start happening more. But it was mentioned a couple of times, but we have clearly the website, and on the Gates Mills Village website, there's a section for this initiative, and there's some updates there that we're going to kind of refresh, and then it can be the home base for updates about the progress of the plan. So we can put meeting notes, a glossary of terms, some of the things that are being discussed, like what do those mean, we can have that there. The recordings, like we have a recording here going right now, like those kinds of things can be saved there, as well as like links to the YouTube page, and more. So just the idea that if someone wants to know what's going on, they don't have time to go to all the meetings in real time, they can go to the website and just kind of click through and look at stuff as they have time. Obviously there's a pink sheet, so we're planning to have a monthly update there. And we actually have one coming out for February, which is basically the summary that we all just talked about just now. And it's just kind of a quick overview, like where we are, and just kind of heads up, things are coming, kind of call to action. But then as we go along, this is one of those things that we all can kind of work on together in terms of, attending meetings and getting the notes together that we want to put in a way that, the average person can understand. Because that's kind of the goal overarching, is to create, messaging in language that, just everybody can understand, that, I'm using the framework of, if I don't understand what I'm writing, then it's probably not good enough, so, so, we have other methods of communicating as well, like Gates Mills Connect, which actually we just got connected to like 2 weeks ago, which has been nice. so we talked about social media. I think this is definitely something we can kind of go through together maybe. Definitely would love to get other people's thoughts on it. Where we were sort of netting out was maybe not leading with the social media, just because, there really isn't as far as I know, a Gates Mills, social media channel for any, I know that the police department has one, which is really nice. But there's not one for the village itself. And I didn't know really we wanted to be in kind of the role of kind of managing that for the whole village, because if you have a social media presence, people expect content to come out from it regularly. And if it doesn't, if you're not paying attention, you might miss an update. There also is the maybe it's not a huge concern, but the audience is like around the world, and if we're trying to reach 2,000 people, it might not be the right method for reaching people. But obviously up to different thoughts on that. We did talk about media PR. So there are the local reporters. So we can, be the kind of the point person for that person. I mean, one of the things that we expect is, as a reporter, any good reporter, they're going to go to their sources and, talk to whoever they want to, council members and that sort of thing. But our committee at least can be a point person to kind of keep them in the loop and try and make sure that they know that we're being transparent. So we'll share the notes with them in terms of like where things stand and other updates, so that, they at least know that, we're making the effort to kind of keep them in the loop. And then if they have questions, I'm sure they'll still continue to reach out to people that they talk to all the time, especially, like the mayor or others. But, we at least can do that. I think that will help kind of give this, an air of transparency, which, I know is a big initiative to make sure that people know that we're trying to be, honest and forthright with what's going on. Anything else?
No, I think that's pretty much everything that we kind of talked about as like overarching plan. I guess there's kind of areas of next steps and what we might need. Oh, the one thing you didn't mention that was meeting notes and going to the meetings, advisory meetings, or advisory committee meetings. And we thought once a schedule gets set, maybe between us, we can divide and conquer, and maybe there's a couple of us that can go to all of them, or we can take turns, and then we can have a nice template for meeting notes that whoever's there can fill in, and then it can funnel all back and we can pull it all together. But we can, that way one person's not maybe going to all of them, but maybe there's a handful of us that split them up between us. And so there's some crossover, maybe 2 of us at every meeting or something like that, depending on our schedule. But that was the other thing, is that we want to make sure our team is represented at those meetings to take notes, and then we can use that to fill in the website and fill in the pink sheet and fill out all the content.
Any questions, I guess?
Yeah.
We rambled a little bit.
So I have a question. I know that we've got a database with the police department and the public safety group where they've solicited email addresses and phone numbers or whatever. I don't know how extensive that is, but my guess is that a pretty high percentage of the villagers have shared that information with that group. Do we have access to that, or is that, public safety information that's private? Because that's an easy way to communicate to people directly. We have their cell phone numbers, we can text them, and we have their email addresses, we can email them. Even if it's you can opt out of it if you don't want to receive these from us, but if there's a way that we can at least get this database of people, it's a really easy way to communicate. I agree with you, doing the social media is gonna be really hard. But if you want to do 2,000 people, it may be an easy way for us to reach people versus the pink sheet is great once a month, but if you have something going on in between, it's an easy way to reach people.
So I would imagine, and I see the fire chief took himself off mute, he probably has a thought on that. I know for the Gates Mills Connect, we have access and we can send out updates that way, and that's something that we can definitely do. But I would imagine with the other one, that might be a little trickier because it's for emergency type things,
You
but
saw me come on, huh? We've had requests in the past for that information. And we have gone through our law director, and that is private. We do not share it. And part of it was when we solicited for the information, we said, we are not going to give your contact information to anyone. And of course, the concern for fire and police is that if that gets out, people will just opt out, and then we can't contact them in an emergency. So excellent thought.
Karen Snyder, how many connections to Gates Mills Connect at this point? 10% of the residents, 50%?
Chief, didn't you tell me at one point it was
I'd
like
have-
530?
I'd have to, yeah, that's about right, 500 and something. It's possible that something could be sent out maybe through Gene, blind copied. We'll have to check. I have to check more into that.
and if Gates Mills Connect is our way, then maybe then we just need to do a push to, as part of this, to get more people to sign up for that.
Right.
If that's what we can do, then we can really push.
And it's
people to that.
it's possible that we ask within the survey for their email from this, on the survey that Chris is going to orchestrate.
Mm.
We ask for their email there so that then we have permission to use it for all of this.
Right.
Yeah,
That'd be
great
my,
suggestion.
because that's going to go to every household. How do you want to receive the information by email, and let them answer that question?
Yeah, Steve, that's a great point. So we can work on that.
Would we give people the option to respond to the survey anonymously though? Or is it like
Yes.
stamped?
Mhm.
Because it asks you for an email address if you're responding to an anonymous survey.
That's a good
We
point.
give them the option. We give them the option. It can be.
Give them the option, but maybe there's another, like maybe something in the pink sheet or some sort of notice to say, hey, if you want to have, frequent information.
Every month I'm asking for their contact.
Okay, because we could just have our own database just outside of what the, the police department maintains, and just use that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Maybe we could put a form on the website that's like sign up for updates, and it's just like, we'll get a few there.
It's a few more, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we could also add to that it won't be shared with marketing firms or commercial enterprises. It's strictly
Mhm.
limited to communicating about this process.
Mhm. Yeah, good point.
Good point.
Any other questions?
So I guess in the short term, obviously a lot will be happening over the next several months. Are we going to do kind of a launch that basically says to the world, we are doing this process? Obviously, some people know about it, and probably a lot don't. And there probably are some. I don't think we need to add a lot of details at this point, but just kind of a stay tuned, kind of message through the pink sheet. We could do it through the Chagrin Valley Times. We could do it, the Plain Dealer every Sunday runs their little blurbs on each community. Some of those outlets, just to build awareness. So when we actually come out with the survey and with the specific asks,
Right.
people understand what we're talking about rather than trying to explain it all at one time.
Yeah.
Right.
Those are great suggestions, and that's why you're on the PR and communications team.
Yeah.
Why I married her.
So we do have something going out in the pink sheet for this month that was along those lines of, you've heard us talk about it, more, this is what's happening. There's a survey coming, keep track. Our website's going to be updated, so keep checking back. But it kind of goes to one of our next areas of need, is that there's an idea of that this comprehensive plan should have its own logo and its own kind of something that goes along with the village. And that would make a nice announcement to put in the pink sheet too, and make it then everything that we're doing has that on there. And it's a very visible sign that you're going to be reading something about the comprehensive plan. And that would make for a nice kickoff, like launch, a further kind of statement of looking out for that. So that's one thing that we're kind of seeing. If, and like I said, Jamie and I didn't get a chance to see the skills. So if any of you are a secret, like, or not so secret graphic design guru that's, or know someone in the village who is, or someone who might be able to work with us, that's kind of something that we're looking at doing as one of our next steps.
Just don't make it a guardian.
We can,
A guardian.
oh, sorry.
Yeah, the Guardians.
Unfortunately, in the skill set that we got, nobody identified that as a skill. We've got other things, photography and.
It's also if
that's
you're,
good.
yeah, photography is great. That's another thing that we
Mhm.
have. I mean, if maybe you're not, or if you know someone else in the village who is, or if the mayor on here, if there's budget for a little bit of graphic design work, I actually work with a lot of really great graphic designers who could probably help us out as well. So there might be some other options. So if you aren't and you know someone who is, that would be great if you could pass that along as well. It'd be great if we could do someone in the village. I think that would be great, but I think there's other options if not.
The other thing too, Judy, to your point, where every month we're doing an update, either Chip or I at the council meeting, and in the February meeting, we'll be announcing officially the names of the people on the advisory committee and the other teams, and Jamie and Sarah have the names of the reporters from the Sun Messenger and Chagrin Valley Times, and they'll be communicating with them. And hopefully, if they're coming to council meetings, and we're talking about it every month, they'll pick up on it too.
It's a good. We didn't mark down about the plain dealer having little area.
Yeah.
Yeah,
updates
because
is
that
something
is true every
that-
Sunday. Yeah.
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 I don't know how that gets in, but
Yeah.
would Crane's
We can always
Cleveland
pitch it to
business,
them. Yeah.
would Crane's Cleveland business have any basis or interest in this kind of thing? I'm not sure, but just throw it out as an idea.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it got me thinking. I mean, it's kind of a not slippery slope, but like putting my media relations hat on, you could go to someone like that with a story like, oh, Gates Mills is looking to kind of reevaluate, evaluate how they're doing, what they can do better, which is is a cool story. But then you do kind of open up like, oh, maybe I want to do a story about Gates Mills, and then it kind of has like some negative stuff too in it. So it is kind of because you could come up with a cool story about, oh, Gates Mills is trying to like, innovate itself and, blah, blah, blah. And then, there's snarky people out there too that, might want to write some not so nice stuff in there as well. So you just got to kind of balance that with that media outreach stuff. But I think that those briefs and everything are
It's
a good
a
place.
good place for it. Yeah.
By the way, week before last, I got a magazine in the mail, the Gates Mills something, and they're just started up, and
Yeah.
sometimes that steals a bit from the pink sheet, but as long as it's out there, they're clearly looking for stories. So I'd put that one down as at some point, whenever you think as a group that we really want to launch this, because launching it next week is a little bit premature because there's not much that's going to happen to the community till, well, I don't know when the questionnaire is going to come out. Chris, I don't know when you think you're going to send that to the villagers. Is that going to be?
So one of the things we wanted to make sure was that we develop a draft list of questions and get feedback from the advisory committee at their first meeting on what the list of questions and the topics that we cover. So then it would be finalized and distributed sometime like a week or two after that first meeting with the advisory committee. So
Okay, so that's the end of April, early May that the questionnaire would go out, probably.
Right.
It's a rough time frame. So it sounds like an April, big launch, so to speak.
Yeah.
While background work's been taking place, the main work will now begin, whatever. So that'd be a nice time for some extra publicity. And it'd be wonderful if, 50 people showed up to listen to the advisory committee meeting or meetings. So
Well, and that gives us more time too to collect email addresses, because that's what we're going to need to send out the survey anyway, right, Chris? Or
Right. Well,
Yeah.
we'll use the, yes, we'll use that, and we'll also send either a postcard or some other sort of notification about it via snail mail.
Yeah, okay. All right, and asking them.
It'd be
that-
nice to
that-
have,
Email.
it'd be nice to have a write-up for the village letter that goes out in February, mid to end of February about it.
Oh.
You're talking the
In
state
the
of the
state of the
village?
village.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
That's a
good
great
point.
idea.
Yes.
Good idea.
And you could kind of give a time frame, you know, what you're thinking about and how your things are going to work in there.
Right.
We could also do one whole page in there that could be separate from the letter that kind of gives an explanation.
With the logo or brand.
Yeah.
Do you think
Well, if you can pull it
mid-February is-
together, yeah.
Do you think mid-February is
It
too
go-
aggressive for getting a logo?
Like the third week, I like to get it out before the end of February. So maybe the third week thereabouts. But we can work on that. Think about it.
Okay. Good. Chris, you were gonna say something?
I was just commenting, and really it was geared towards Sarah and Jamie in terms of what their thoughts are in terms of putting together a logo. If we're talking about a 2 or 3 week effort, if that's enough time, would you?
It depends if we're gonna go pay someone, that would be
Right.
faster, but if we're gonna go find somebody who can give us kind of their free support, that might take a little bit more time, it seems.
But yeah, I mean, it could be possible if, you know, get a couple ideas back from
Mhm.
someone and then we can try for that. I can
Mm.
put some feelers out on the graphic designers I know and see if,
Chris, do you have examples from any other comprehensive plan studies that were kind of stood out or
Yeah,
intriguing?
I can send you some examples. Yep, gather them up.
That'd be really good.
Do we know anybody? Does anyone on this call happen to know anyone locally that is a graphic designer or has design background? I don't.
I have a nephew who's extremely talented. He happens to live in Avon Lake, but if I ask him, he'll probably help. But
We'll take them.
yeah.
yeah,
Okay then, yeah, we're good.
He's your nephew. We can't charge you.
he owes me for some things I've been doing for him, so I think I can ask a favor. But
Oh, that'd be good.
Yeah, that's a good, I mean, that's
I'll-
more local than my contact who lives in DC. So, so that's in the same state. So
Yeah, excellent.
but if somebody knows somebody that knows our village, that would be great. So
I'll tell you the other asset that we may want to think about down the road. We don't have to decide this now. Is somebody probably has a really smart 15-year-old kid that knows how to really do websites very well, and we ought to exploit child labor here.
We need to go to Mayfield schools, and the chief just reminded me, the vests that we sell that have the Gates Mills logo on, that was done by one of our high school students, and the village
That's a
video
good idea
was
too.
done in 2020, and why not get them involved? So I can, Chip, you reach out to your nephew, I'll reach out to the school and see what we can get there.
I was wondering about that because was that like a contest that they did? I feel like I
Yes.
remember reading that's something that we could do too if a high school student would like to, enter a contest to do it. It's kind of
Great idea. Okay,
be good.
good suggestion,
That'd be
chief.
great.
Jane, you're involved in various organizations for the village, and I'm surprised you're sitting there not playing pickleball at the moment. She's the #1 pickleball person in the community. So
Every
what are your
chance I
thoughts?
get.
Yeah. Any thoughts on how this is coming together as you understand it at this point?
Yeah, this is kind of all hitting me new, with some of the others on the call, but I'm really thinking through in my overall mind about a communication plan, a strategy of what happens during each month. And I would also caution against and being extremely careful how and when we involve the media, because right now we're really trying to do this to gather information in the village. And the plain dealer can sometimes go a little awry. So I think we have to be extremely careful at what point in time we involve them. And I know the Chagrin Valley Times and the Sun Messenger will be coming to our meetings and participating in that. But I view this as more of an internal communications with the village, and a big sensitivity with involving a lot of media.
Good
So
point.
that might be something we can think through. At what point in time do we want to contact the plain dealer? Because I view this as more internal fact gathering for several months here.
Good
So,
point.
Mm.
Good point.
Yep.
How
Agreed.
about you? How about you, Susan? You've been quiet.
On mute. No, I'm just kind of taking it all in and trying to, get an understanding of the process and where I can help.
Great. And Jennifer?
Sorry, I got a visitor. I'm trying to shoo him along.
One of your kids?
Yes, one of my kids. Yes, you just completely derailed me. I'm sorry. What was the question?
Just wondered what your thoughts are at this point.
No, I'm excited. I mean, I don't have any. I mean, I agree with everything that's been said. I agree on the media comment. I also agree that social media is probably a long, windy road that we don't want to go down for the purposes of this project, at least not right now. So, all sounds good to me.
Good. And there are two other members of the committee, Becky Burrington and Lindy Rutkowski, who just weren't able to be with us today. And we're also going to include Jean Mish from the village. Many of you know her, and Jean, is our link to the website and the webmaster. So so she'll be key in this effort too.
And I've worked with Becky before. She's very good at helping work on a website. I wouldn't call her a graphic designer, but she certainly jumps in on stuff like that. Worked with her on the Improvement Society, setting all of that up. So that's another resource for you. But again, not from a graphic design or something. I know, Steve, I chatted with you a little bit, but when we get to a neighborhood, when we're going out for the neighborhood teams to communicate and putting a little presentation material together. I know from your corporate background, you've obviously probably had to put some PowerPoints and things like that, but between you and Judy, do you feel that you have some skills in that regard? I don't mean to put you on the spot, just trying to understand.
Yeah, I think we probably did it once a week for years and years and years. Yeah, we can help on that.
That was another thing in the area of need, was like presentations and displays for public meetings was something Chris mentioned, that once we get to the point of public forums, of having some displays and interactive, ways to get information and ideas and opinions from the village, that will be helpful as well, kind of working on those and coming up with some ideas and creating those displays and communications. So that'd be great too. And then the other thing that's on there too, which I'm glad it seems like a few people responded, is photography and interest in that and helping, because that was something Chris said would really help with that final report, is adding in some images, some photographs from around the village. And I think it could help too with the website and some different things, kind of just break up a lot of the verbiage and a lot of those things. But I think it will also help with the final report. So that I think that's something that as we get further on, when Chris needs some images, we can kind of send out the call for people to go out and take some snaps of the village.
I tend to find also when there's been some community event, subsequent, when they publish that, this community event took place and there's pictures of this people and they're chatting or whatever, and there's some other people are looking at something or whatever, and you say, oh wow, that looked like a pretty active thing. Gee, I missed that. I want to make sure I get to the next one. So even when you have the advisory committee, just obviously not some people all sitting behind a big table, but anything that would be lively or whatever, just, said, oh gosh, I missed that. That would take some real art on how you take a picture or a couple of them, but that brings it a little more to life than just 2 paragraphs that says an advisory committee took place,
Yeah.
if that's possible. So
Definitely.
That's a good idea.
I think that would help.
And most of the meetings will be, rebroadcast on on the YouTube channel for the village. So that's another way that people can get information about what's going on with the plan. And I guess you can direct them to that through the website.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Which that, I guess, with next steps is something Jamie has kind of started, like website updates, kind of looking at what kind of we want to do there as well. So I think that's one of the first things we want to start with, is that we want that to always be the place where people can go. So for every pink sheet, we can always end with, all of this will be on the website, always send people there. And that's including recordings of meetings and what next meetings are and things like that.
Who maintains the website now?
Who does the website? Jean is the
Yeah.
person, and I don't know who the webmaster is. It's a company that we contract with,
Okay.
or a person that we contract with.
Yeah, the content we have now, there's not a lot, obviously, because there's not a lot has happened. So it's kind of like a quick overview and some links to previous documents and stuff, but there'll definitely be more there as we go forward.
I need to build it out a little more, so it's not just a bunch of like a list of downloads and things like that, a little more structure to it of where you can go for recordings or meetings or schedules or glossaries, kind of.
One of the things that we can get started on too, assembling, is the frequently asked questions, even though they haven't, quote, been frequently asked yet from Gates Mills, but typically, what's the definition of a comprehensive plan? Some basic things that just get started. We could post that up.
Yeah.
Do you have that? Something like that?
It could be, yeah. So I could get something to you by early next week, maybe.
Yeah, if we could start on like a glossary and FAQ section, that might be a good thing that we can get up right away. That
One thing that might be helpful, just so before we get so enamored with the website, we should get some read from our webmaster to find out how many people actually go on the Gates Mills website. The only time I go on is when I'm doing a vacation request.
Mhm.
It's the only thing I do. See, I have it automatically goes right to the site, but we should just get a feel for that, because if we're relying on 2,000 people to go look at this thing, and normally only 10 people look at it, we need to get them to. We need to convince them they need to go to the site.
Yeah.
Otherwise we need to find another vehicle to get the information to them. So we just shouldn't assume that people like me regularly go to the website, because I would never click on the strategic plan thing, because I'm going there for one reason only, to let Greg know that we're going to be out of town for the weekend.
Okay, good point.
Yeah, that's a good point. And actually, sorry.
No, go ahead, Jamie.
I was just going to say that's just like another good idea, and like things that we could talk about. Because as you were saying that, I was thinking about, what are other ways we can get in front of people? It's like maybe you put like a poster in the post office. I don't know if you can actually do that, but like places where people actually go. So yeah, that's good. It's good.
That's a good suggestion. I bet we could put a poster in the post office, but
In the library,
with a new logo.
Susan, you've done a lot with what, I think with IT and website, and you set up a Facebook page for the community club. Any thoughts that you have, to this topic?
No, not really. I mean, I agree that there's probably a lot that we can do with setting up the web page to have some logical structure to it, which would be good. I think as far as driving traffic to it, probably the other communications that we do will point people to the website, and that's how we'll get them there. You can put it on the survey, put it in the pink sheet. put it on Customer Connect. And if you want more information, then the website is the place to go. I agree with the comments about social media, an outward facing website just for this. Twitter, Facebook probably is not the vehicle. So I agree with that.
Good, thank you.
As you look at the Gates Mills website, this is probably the most significant undertaking we've done in a village in 20 years. So look at the webpage when you go to the village website, and if it's just a little box down in the corner that says, click here to look at the strategic plan. So the next time Steve goes to tell him when he's going on vacation, he doesn't even see the box, as opposed to in bright flashing letters, look at the village, whatever we're going to call it, comprehensive plan or whatever, that get people to say, oh, what is this? It's a little different way of how we do our page. So we might want to revamp that a bit. So give some thought, all of you, as you look at that. So that when Steve signs up for vacation next time, he clicks on that while he's doing it. So, or maybe that's how we sign up for vacation. You want to sign up for vacation, you go to our comprehensive. So, anyways.
That URL for a little bit.
So Sarah and Jamie, I have found, we are a very good volunteer community. People are willing to pitch in. So this has been a good overview, but you got to, give more specific direction as it comes up, what you'd like people to try to do, understand what people want to get involved in, et cetera. But, and, some people will start getting back to you with comments, but got to take it from here on the individual steps.
So I think some of the next steps is, Jamie, I think you've already reached out to Jean about the website, right?
Not yet, but.
Okay, then I think that's the next thing we need to do is kind of figure out what kind of data we can get from there and what we can do. And then maybe we need to, for anyone who wants to be involved in like websites, have a little brainstorming and pull together our thoughts and ideas and start updating the website would be kind of, I think, our first plan of action.
And also we were going to set up a schedule for meetings, so we can kind of convene that in terms of when everyone's free and how often you guys want to meet and everything. So we can we'll add that as our action item as well.
Yeah. Okay.
And maybe a communications plan. We've talked a little about when do you, what James said, don't get started too early with different organizations, but when you want to, what kind of communications when. So
I need a calendar.
something along that line.
So I think the one thing I heard though is that sometime third week in February, there's a deadline for getting in the pink sheet for March.
Yes.
So who actually is going to do that communication? Because that's 3 weeks from now or 2 weeks from now. So who's going to do that communication? Is that Karen or is that somebody else? And is that the mayor does that or somebody else needs to write?
The state of the village is what I coordinate.
The mayor sends a letter to all
what I will
residents,
coordinate,
State of the village letter. Then the pink
every
sheet comes out.
resident gets it.
Right. You're going to write it. You're going to write the pitch, not the marketing.
No, she's going to write the state of the village, but this committee needs to write what she might feed in or attach.
Got it. Okay.
And I would suggest that's part of our communication plan. Who are the various audiences?
Yes.
What's the message for each one? When does it happen? What's the periodic, the repetition? So I really think an overall project plan for communications would really be a good place to start.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point, because I don't know if that, we started a draft. I don't know if everyone got it, but I think it's like a good start, and a lot of these things need to be added, I think. So we have a place to start. We can build on it and add in a lot of that stuff.
And more of a schedule and
Yeah.
um
And yeah.
I find on a lot of volunteer committees that when one of the volunteers speaks up with an idea, that means that's really good for them to I think Jane wants to help on setting up that overall plan.
I'd love to.
Excellent.
It sounds like you've got a good start to one.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely there's definitely missing pieces based on kind of like everything we're talking about, but it's kind of like at least a base.
Yeah, but yeah.
Yeah, this has been a great discussion because I think a lot of good ideas have come out and also reinforce some of the things that we've talked about, and wanted to get your input before we plowed ahead. So this has been very helpful, and I would think, Jamie and Sarah would be obviously reaching out to those of you who said they would volunteer for one thing or another, and vice versa. If you have anything, any bright ideas that you want to share with them or want to raise your hand, they'll be more than happy to take your help. And again, if there's anything that Chip and I can do, we're certainly in the picture, but your team leaders know a lot more about PR and communications than I think we do. So I'm just delighted with all of you participating and with Jamie and Sarah being the team facilitators. This is going to be a lot of fun.
I have a question too, then, based on the discussion from tonight's meeting, or given all of the discussion tonight, are Sarah and Jamie, were either of you planning on doing a summary of the meeting, or like just bullet points of the discussion topics, or?
Sure, I took a bunch of notes so I can send over a summary, and then maybe next steps is, seeing who wants to help I can work with Jane on setting up this, communication plan, and then start going from there, kind of filling in the more details, and then seeing what, kind of next steps come from there of what needs to be done.
I'd be happy to help with the communication
great.
plan too. Yep.
Thanks, Jen.
And Sarah, on your communication plan, try not to put any biologic equations or breakdown of the human cell or something. So, because you might lose me at that point. So.
Leave it all. I'm happy to leave that at work. It'll be wonderful. So great.
Chris, any parting advice, thoughts, recommendations before we close?
Well, I just think it's great that all of you guys are willing to donate your time because with this outreach, because I think the more there are committed residents, people who are committed to spreading the word, the more we are likely, the more times people hear about it, the more likely they are to look for the survey when the survey gets posted, come to a community meeting and make comments. So I think this is great. This kind of outreach is great.
Good. Thank you. All right. Well, thanks everyone. Have a good evening, and we'll all be in touch soon, I'm sure.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you all.
Thank you.
Yes.
Bye.
Nice to meet all of you. Bye.